The crystal chandeliers sparkled like 1,000 stars above the marble floors of the Okonkwo mansion in the heart of Lagos. Music poured from golden speakers while champagne flowed like rivers through the crowd of 300 guests. Nigeria's elite had gathered for the engagement party of the year. Billionaire Obinna Okonkwo and socialite Chioma Adeyemi. But in the center of that glittering crowd, a young woman stood trembling, champagne dripping from her cheap cotton dress onto the pristine floor. Her name was Amara, and in the next 60 minutes, her life would transform from a nightmare into something she never dared to dream. "You filthy thief!" Chioma's voice cut through the music like a blade, her manicured finger pointing accusingly at Amara while her other hand clutched a diamond necklace. The housemaid's lips trembled as tears streamed down her dark cheeks. "Ma, I would never." But Chioma hurled the champagne glass, and it shattered at Amara's feet, making her jump back in fear. 300 guests gasped collectively, their camera phones rising like a forest of judgment. Standing at the top of the grand staircase in a perfectly tailored suit was Obinna Okonkwo himself, the billionaire whose silence felt like a death sentence. His eyes held doubt, confusion, and something that made Amara's heart shatter into a million pieces. But someone else in that crowd was smiling strangely. Ngozi Okoli, the ex-girlfriend Obinna had deliberately invited to prove he had moved on, stood in the corner wearing an expression that did not match the chaos unfolding before her eyes. Not shock, not pity, something closer to satisfaction, as if pieces of a puzzle were finally falling into place. "Well?" Chioma turned dramatically to Obinna, her voice dripping with performed outrage that would have won her an Oscar. "Aren't you going to call the police on this village rat who dares to steal from your own home?" Amara's eyes found Obinna's across the crowd of designer dresses and expensive suits. In his gaze, she saw something that made her want to disappear into the earth. Doubt. After 6 months of working silently in his home, after all the small kindnesses she had treasured like precious diamonds in her poverty, he doubted her. The pain of that realization was worse than any of Chioma's accusations. "Please," Amara whispered, her voice breaking as tears continued to flow. "I didn't take anything. I swear on my mother's grave, I am not a thief." But then Chioma did something that made the entire room freeze in collective shock. She pulled out her phone with theatrical precision and played a video for all to see. On the bright screen, someone who looked exactly like Amara was clearly slipping jewelry into a cleaning bag with deliberate movements. Still going to lie to all of us. Chioma's smile was venomous, triumphant, cruel beyond measure as she watched Amara's world crumble. The room erupted like a volcano of judgment. Voices crashed over Amara like violent waves threatening to drown her. Thief, criminal, village trash, ungrateful servant. The words cut deeper than any knife could, each one a wound that bled shame and humiliation. But what none of them knew, what would only emerge in the coming hour through revelations that would shake Lagos society, was that this moment was the collision of 3 carefully constructed betrayals woven together over months of planning. And when the truth finally emerged, it would destroy everything these people believed about status, love, and the worth of a human soul. How did a poor village girl from Umufia end up at the center of Lagos's most explosive scandal? Why did the ex-girlfriend look pleased instead of shocked when a maid was being destroyed? And what secret connected Amara's dead mother to the Okonkwo family's darkest and most sacred chapter? The answer begins 6 months earlier, in a village where red dust covered everything and cruelty wore the comfortable mask of family love. Amara was born under the wide skies of Umufia, where the earth was red and horizons stretched forever toward hope or despair depending on your fortune. Her mother, Chidinma, was known as the most beautiful woman in 3 villages, not because of her face, though it was lovely, but because of her heart that never turned anyone away. She was a midwife, a healer, a woman whose hands brought life into the world and whose wisdom guided the troubled through darkness. Amara's childhood was wrapped in her mother's laughter and the rich scent of ugba and garden eggs cooking over the evening fire. They were poor, yes, their compound was small and their possessions few, but love made them rich in ways gold never could. "Remember, my daughter," Chidinma would say while braiding Amara's thick hair under the ancient mango tree, her fingers gentle and sure. "A good heart is worth more than all the gold in Lagos. Beauty fades like morning mist. Money runs through fingers like water, but kindness, true kindness, echoes forever through generations." Amara was only 7 years old when her mother died, and the world lost its color and warmth. The sickness came quick and merciless, like a thief in the night who steals what can never be replaced. One week, Chidinma was singing while pounding yam with strong arms. The next, she lay on a woven mat, growing smaller and smaller with each passing day until she was just bones and whispered prayers. "Be strong, my Amara," her mother breathed on that final, terrible night, her hand thin as paper but still trying to comfort. "Your father is a good man, but he is weak in ways that matter. Promise me something important. Promise me you will never let anyone break your spirit, no matter how hard they try." Through tears that blurred the world, 7-year-old Amara whispered, "I promise, Mama. I promise." 2 days after they buried Chidinma under the mango tree, where she had braided her daughter's hair countless times, Amara's father brought home a new wife, and childhood ended forever. Adana arrived with 2 daughters, Neka and Obiageli, and a smile that never quite reached her calculating eyes. She was beautiful in a hard way, like a diamond that could cut and draw blood. "My poor husband," Adana cooed, running her fingers through his graying hair while young Amara watched from the corner, still wearing her mourning cloth. "You need a woman's touch in this house, and this poor child needs a mother to guide her." The first month, Adana played her part with the skill of a born actress. She cooked, she cleaned, she even braided Amara's hair, though her fingers pulled too tight, making the child's eyes water with pain she dared not show. But in the second month, when the village's attention had moved on to other matters, the mask began to slip and reveal the monster underneath. Amara woke one morning to find her mother's wrapper, the beautiful blue aqueous cloth Chidinma wore on special occasions, her most precious possession, draped on Adana's body like a trophy. "Stepmother," Amara said quietly, her small heart pounding with fear and righteous anger. "That belonged to my mother. It is all I have left of her." Adana's eyes went cold as river stones in winter. "Your mother is dead and buried. I am your mother now, child. And in this house, we share everything, everything." Amara's father looked away from his daughter's pleading eyes, and that was the moment she learned that grief has no expiration date for those who truly loved, and that some people feed on the grief of others like vultures on carrion. By the 3rd month, Amara was no longer treated like a daughter or even a family member. She had become the housemaid, the servant, the one who existed to make others comfortable. While Neka and Obiageli attended school in their crisp uniforms, laughing and learning, Amara fetched water from the distant stream before sunrise, her small back bending under the weight of heavy buckets. while her stepsisters ate chicken and jollof rice until their bellies were full and happy. Amara scraped burnt rice from the bottom of the pot and ate it in the corner like a dog. While they slept under protective mosquito nets in comfortable beds, Amara slept on a thin mat in the kitchen, where cockroaches crawled across her feet in the darkness and rats scurried near her head. "Lazy girl," Adana would scream, her voice echoing across the compound for all the neighbors to hear. "You think because your mother spoiled you, you are too good for honest work? Move faster, work harder, earn your place in this house," the village women whispered among themselves when they saw Amara's condition. Some pitied her with sad eyes and shaking heads, but most looked away because intervention in another man's household was not their place, and trouble was best avoided. "It is not our business," they would say, hurrying past while Amara carried water buckets that bent her young spine and aged her before her time. But Adana's cruelty went deeper than physical work and hunger. It went into the soul, into dreams, into the future itself. When Amara turned 15, a young man named Cheek saw her at the stream one morning. Despite her torn wrapper and calloused hands, despite the exhaustion in her young face, he saw something in her eyes, that ember of spirit her mother had begged her to keep alive. "You are beautiful," Cheek said simply, honestly, and for the first time in years, Amara smiled with genuine joy. Cheek brought his family to ask for Amara's hand in marriage, following all the proper traditions. They came with palm wine and cola nuts, with respect and genuine interest in the match. Amara's father looked ready to accept. A marriage would bring bride price, and more importantly, freedom for his suffering daughter. But Adana stood up abruptly, her face twisted with something darker than simple anger, something that looked like hatred mixed with desperate fear. "This girl," she laughed cruelly, loudly, making sure everyone heard every poisonous word. "She is cursed. Why do you think her mother died so young, eh? The gods rejected her. Any man foolish enough to marry her will know suffering and loss." Chaik's family left quickly, afraid of curses and bad fortune, unwilling to risk their son's future. It happened again with another suitor, and again with a third. 3 more men. 3 more times. Adana destroyed Amara's chances with whispered lies about curses and bad luck, with invented stories of madness in the bloodline and misfortune that followed the girl like a shadow. Amara began to understand a terrible truth. Adana would never let her go, never allow her freedom. She was too valuable as free labor, too useful as a servant who cost nothing, and perhaps most painfully, too threatening as a living reminder of the first wife her father had truly loved with his whole heart. But then, Amara overheard something that changed everything and set her on the path to Lagos. She was supposed to be sleeping in the kitchen, exhausted from a day of endless work, but voices from her father's room carried through the thin walls of the compound, and what she heard made her blood run cold with terror. "She is too old now," Adana was saying with cold calculation. 19 and unmarried. People will start asking questions, calling her useless. But Chief Okafor will pay well for a young wife. He does not care that she is cursed or unlucky. He just needs a young wife to cook, clean, and bear him sons. His other 3 wives are too old for children now. Chief Okafor is 70 years old, her father protested weakly, but there was no real strength in his voice, no true resistance. And rich. Very rich. Adana's voice was sharp, final. The bride price will buy proper husbands for Neka and Obiageli. Your precious Amara will finally be useful to this family after all these years of being a burden. There was silence, heavy and damning. Then her father's defeated voice, barely a whisper. When will this happen? Market day. 2 weeks from now. Everything is already arranged, so don't you dare interfere. Amara did not sleep that night or the next. She stared at the ceiling, her mother's final words echoing in her mind like a prayer or a curse. Never let anyone break your spirit. She had exactly 2 weeks to escape or be sold to a man old enough to be her grandfather, a man who had buried 2 wives already and whose reputation for cruelty was whispered about in fearful tones. So the night before market day, while Adana and her daughters slept soundly, dreaming of bride price and new clothes, Amara took 5 things that she could carry. Her mother's faded photograph, a small bag of Gary for the journey, the tattered wrapper she had worn at her mother's burial, 20 naira hidden under her sleeping mat, and something else she had found years ago, buried near her mother's grave, a small bronze pendant shaped like a bird in flight. She did not know it then, could not have imagined it, but that pendant would unlock everything and prove her identity when it mattered most. Under the cover of darkness, with village dogs barking in the distance and her heart pounding like drums, Amara walked away from Umufia with no plan, no contacts, no safety net, just a desperate prayer and the vague address of a distant aunt in Lagos she had heard about, but never met. The journey to Lagos took 3 long, terrifying days that tested every bit of her courage. She rode in the back of trucks with strangers, slept at motor parks where danger lurked in every shadow, and survived on the kindness of strangers who saw a young girl trying to escape something worse than poverty itself. When she finally reached Lagos, the city swallowed her whole with its noise and chaos. Lights everywhere, sounds that never stopped, cars moving like angry insects, buildings that touched the sky and blocked out the stars. She had never felt so small, so lost, so utterly alone in her entire life. The aunt's address led to a crumbling building in motion where paint peeled and hope seemed to have died long ago. But the aunt had moved away years earlier, and no one knew where she had gone. Amara had nowhere to go, no backup plan, no safety. She spent 2 nights sleeping behind a church, her stomach cramping from hunger, her body shaking with fear, praying to her mother's spirit for guidance or mercy, or just the strength to survive one more day. A woman found her on the 3rd morning when Amara was weak with hunger and ready to give up. "You look lost, child, lost and hungry and far from home." The woman's name was Patience, and she was a cook in a big house in Lekki, one of Lagos's wealthiest areas. The family just fired their housemaid for stealing, or so they claim. Can you clean? Can you cook? Can you keep your mouth shut and your hands clean and honest? Patience asked with kind but searching eyes. "Yes, Ma," Amara whispered, hope sparking in her chest like a fragile flame. "I can do all of that." "Then follow me, and may God help you if you prove me wrong for trusting you." That is how Amara ended up standing before the towering gates of the Okonkwo mansion, her small bag clutched to her chest, staring at a life she had only seen in movies and dreams. The head of house, a stern woman named Mama Nkechi with sharp eyes that missed nothing, looked her up and down with clear skepticism written on her face. "You are too thin, too quiet, too young for this kind of work. But we need someone immediately, so you will do. You will clean the guest rooms, help in the kitchen, and stay invisible. Mr. Okonkwo does not like seeing the help. Is that understood?" "Yes, Ma, I understand perfectly." For 6 months, Amara made herself invisible, just as instructed. She woke at 4 in the morning when the world was still dark, scrubbed floors until they gleamed like mirrors, and disappeared before the family emerged for their day. She sent most of her small salary back to her father through a trusted driver, hoping somehow it would reach him and not Adana's greedy hands. She never saw Obinna Okonkwo in those first months. He was a shadow moving through the house, expensive shoes walking past her bowed head, a deep voice giving orders from another room, a presence that made the entire household move differently, more carefully, until the night she saved his life and everything changed between them forever. The night Amara met Obinna face to face, the mansion was wrapped in silence. It was 2 a.m, and she had come downstairs for water, moving silently in the darkness, a skill learned from years of avoiding Adana's wrath and sudden rages. That is when she heard it, a crash from the study, then a groan of pain. Her first instinct, trained by months of invisibility, was to run back upstairs and pretend she had heard nothing. But then another sound came, gasping, like someone struggling to breathe, drowning in air. Amara pushed open the study door, her heart racing. Obinna Okonkwo lay on the floor, his face gray as ash, his hand clutching his chest in obvious agony. Pills were scattered across the expensive carpet like fallen stars. An empty glass had rolled under the mahogany desk. "Sir?" Amara dropped to her knees beside him, her hands moving on pure instinct. She had watched her mother treat countless villagers with every kind of ailment. She recognized these signs immediately. Not a heart attack, allergic reaction, anaphylaxis. She saw the shrimp cocktail on the desk and remembered Mama Nkechi mentioning casually that Mr. Okonkwo was deathly allergic to shellfish. "Your injection, sir. Where is your injection?" she asked urgently, her voice steady despite her fear. He tried to point with a shaking hand, but the movement was too violent, too uncontrolled. Amara tore through drawers with focused determination until she found the EpiPen. Her hands did not shake as she administered it, the same steady hands that had helped her mother deliver babies in the village, that had learned healing before they learned hate. Within seconds, his breathing eased, the color slowly returning to his face. When the ambulance arrived 15 minutes later, Obinna was conscious and stable. His eyes found Amara's across the room full of paramedics and frantic staff. "You saved my life," he whispered, his voice rough but filled with wonder and gratitude. I did what anyone would do, sir. What my mother taught me." "No," he said firmly, certainly. "Most people would have panicked, called for help and waited. Those minutes would have killed me." 3 days later, Mama Nkechi called Amara to the study with an expression she could not read. Obinna sat behind his massive desk, looking like a king in his throne room, powerful and untouchable. But when he saw her enter, he stood, a gesture of respect that made Mama Nkechi's eyes widen in surprise. "What is your name?" "Your full name?" His voice was gentler than she had ever expected from a billionaire. "Amara, sir. Just Amara." "Amara," he repeated slowly, as if tasting the word and finding it meaningful. "It means grace. Did you know that?" "Yes, sir. My mother chose it. She said I would need grace to survive this world." Something flickered in his dark eyes, recognition, curiosity, perhaps sadness. "Your mother must have been a very wise woman to know such things." Tears threatened, but Amara blinked them back with the practice of years. "She was the wisest woman I ever knew, sir. I owe you my life, Amara. That is a debt I do not take lightly, and I always pay my debts. If you ever need anything at all, you come to me directly. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." As she turned to leave, grateful and confused, he called out, "Amara? What brought you to Lagos? A young village girl, alone, working as a maid in a stranger's house. There is a story there, I think. She hesitated at the door, deciding how much truth to share. Then, simply, I was running from a life I did not choose, sir. Running toward something better, I hoped. He nodded slowly, as if he understood more than she had said, as if he recognized something in her story. Sometimes running is the bravest thing we can do. Sometimes it is the only thing. After that night, things shifted in small but significant ways. Obinna would nod when he passed her in the halls, a simple acknowledgement that she existed. Once, he asked about her day, seeming genuinely interested in her answer. Small moments, but to Amara, they felt like treasures she hoarded in her heart. She began to notice things about him that others missed. The sadness in his eyes despite all his wealth and success. The way he worked until midnight, as if running from his own thoughts and memories. The gentleness with which he spoke to the gardener's children when he thought no one was watching, revealing a kind heart hidden beneath the billionaire exterior. And against every logical thought, against everything she knew about their impossibly different worlds, Amara felt something dangerous blooming in her chest like a forbidden flower. Hope. Then Kioma entered the picture like a hurricane, and hope began to wither. She arrived with designer bags, clicking heels that announced her presence, and a laugh that demanded attention from everyone in hearing distance. Chioma Adeyemi, daughter of a Lagos oil magnate, beauty queen runner-up, Instagram influencer with 2 million followers who documented her glamorous life for the world to envy. Darling, she swept into the mansion as if she already owned it, kissing Obinna's cheek while her calculating eyes catalogued everything valuable in sight. This place needs a woman's touch desperately, so dreadfully masculine and cold. From that day, Kioma was everywhere, inserting herself into every corner of the house and Obinna's life, planning renovations, hosting parties, making lists of staff to fire, because they make the house look poor and bring down the aesthetic, darling. She noticed Amara immediately with the instinct of a predator spotting potential prey. You, Kioma pointed during one of her imperious inspections of the staff. The skinny one. You are the maid who saved Obinna's life, yes? Yes, Ma. Kioma's eyes narrowed, seeing something Amara did not realize showed clearly on her innocent face. How very fortunate for him, and how fortunate for you, I am sure. You must be quite proud of yourself. The words dripped with poison, with accusation, with warning. From then on, Kioma watched Amara like a hawk watches a mouse in an open field. Every task was criticized with sharp words. Every movement was noted and commented upon. She walks too slowly. She looks at Mr. Okonkwo too long, too familiarly. She is too comfortable here, too confident for a mere maid. Mama and Keiichi, who had grown genuinely fond of Amara, tried to protect her when she could. The girl does good work. Mr. Okonkwo himself said she saved his life and deserves respect. Mr. Okonkwo will soon be my husband, Kioma snapped back, and I decide who stays in my house and who goes. Remember that. The engagement announcement came on a Tuesday that felt like the end of the world to Amara. She was polishing silver in the dining room when she heard the household staff gossiping excitedly in the kitchen, their voices carrying through the quiet house. They are engaged. Finally engaged. Getting married in 3 months, one maid exclaimed with romantic excitement. Did you see the ring? Chai, the size of a grape. It must have cost millions. Another added with awe. And she is inviting everyone to the engagement party. Even the ex-girlfriend. Can you imagine? That last part made Amara's hands still, the silver forgotten. The ex? Why would she do that? She heard someone ask. To prove he has moved on completely. Ngozi Okoli, you know, the professor's daughter. They dated for 5 years. She broke his heart when she chose her career over marriage. Now, Kioma wants to parade the new engagement in front of her. So wicked, so petty. Something about it felt wrong to Amara, felt calculated and cruel. But what did she know of rich people's games and power plays? That night, unable to sleep, Amara stood by her small window and looked at the stars, the same stars that hung over Umufia, the same stars her mother had once pointed to while teaching her about constancy and hope. Tears slid down her cheeks unchecked. Mama, she whispered to the night, I broke my promise. I let someone into my heart who can never be mine. I am a fool. But then came the night that changed everything and set the final act in motion. Amara was cleaning the guest wing when she heard voices from Kioma's temporary room. The door was cracked open just slightly, and the words floated out clearly. Yes, everything is set perfectly, Kioma was saying into her phone, her voice different, harder, colder, without the sweet performance she used around Obinna. The company's shares will transfer to my name after the wedding. His lawyer drew up the prenup exactly as I wanted. The fool thinks he is protecting his assets, but I had my own lawyer add clauses he did not read carefully enough. He trusts me completely. Silence as she listened to whoever was on the other end. Amara stood frozen, her heart beginning to pound with the realization of what she was hearing. No, he suspects nothing at all. He is too busy being the noble billionaire to notice what is happening under his nose. And once I am officially Mrs. Okonkwo, we will bleed this empire dry and disappear, possibly to Dubai or London, somewhere beautiful and far away. Amara's blood ran cold with horror and disbelief. The maids! Please, they are invisible, especially that village rat Amara. Although, Kioma's voice turned thoughtful, dangerous. I do not like how he looks at her sometimes. Like she actually matters. We might need to handle that situation before the wedding. Permanently. Amara backed away slowly, carefully, her heart hammering so loudly she feared it would give her away. She had to tell someone. She had to warn Obinna. But who would believe a housemaid over Lagos's darling socialite, over a woman with millions of followers and a perfect public image? The next morning, Amara tried desperately to approach Obinna, but Kioma was always there, her arm linked possessively through his, her laugh filling every space, her presence a wall between them. Then Amara made a decision that would prove both brave and nearly fatal. She wrote everything she had heard in a careful letter, every word of that phone conversation, every detail she could remember. She sealed it and planned to slip it under Obinna's bedroom door when he was in his study, when Kioma was distracted with party planning. But Kioma's assistant saw her in the hallway, saw the letter in her hand, and within an hour, everything exploded. Amara was called to the parlor where Kioma sat like a queen on her throne, with Mama Nkechi standing nervously to the side. The letter, opened and read, lay on the table between them like evidence of a crime. Did you write this? Kioma's voice was ice, deadly and cold. Did you write these vicious lies about me? Yes, Ma, but they are not lies. I heard you on the phone, and you invaded my privacy. You eavesdropped, and now you are creating malicious lies to sabotage my engagement. Why? Because you are jealous? Kioma stood, and Amara saw something terrifying in her eyes, the look of someone who would destroy anything in her path to get what she wanted. Mama Nkechi, this girl is clearly delusional, mentally unstable, jealous perhaps that a village nobody will never have what I have. I want her fired. Today. Immediately. But Ma, Mr. Obinna said she should always have a place here after she saved his life. I do not care what he said. I'm about to become the lady of this house, and I will not tolerate lying, scheming servants. Mama Nkichi looked torn between loyalty and fear. I must speak to Mr. Obinna first. It is his house, his decision. Fine, we will all speak to him, tonight, and this lying maid will apologize for her slander, or I will have her arrested for defamation. I have lawyers, good ones. That evening, Amara stood before Obinna in his study, with Kioma beside him looking victorious, and Mama Nkichi looking sympathetic and helpless. The air was thick with tension. Amara. Obinna's voice was tired, confused, disappointed. Kioma showed me your letter. These are very serious accusations you have made. Sir, I swear on my mother's grave, I heard every word. She is obsessed with you. Kioma interrupted, her voice breaking perfectly, tears appearing on cue. Ever since she saved your life, she has had this fantasy that you are hers. It is disturbing, darling. Deeply disturbing. I have tried to be kind, tried to be understanding, but she is making me uncomfortable in what will soon be my own home. Amara's eyes widened in shock at the audacious lie. Sir, that is not true. I could never. But tears were choking her words, making her seem hysterical, unstable. How could she defend herself against something so calculated, so perfectly performed? Obinna looked between them, his fiancée and the maid who had saved his life. Amara saw doubt cloud his handsome face, the same doubt that would be there at the engagement party, the same doubt that had the power to destroy her. Amara, Obinna said finally, and his voice carried a weight that crushed her spirit. I think it is best if you take some time off. A few weeks, paid leave. We will reassess after the engagement party. You are not firing her? Kioma's voice rose with indignation. I am being fair. If Amara truly heard something concerning, I want to investigate quietly, privately. If not, we will handle it appropriately then. It was Solomon's judgment, meant to be wise, but it felt like a knife twisting in Amara's heart. Yes, sir, she whispered, her spirit breaking. But as she turned to leave, Kioma's expression told her everything she needed to know. This was not over. It was just beginning. The real attack was still coming. That night, Amara lay awake in her small room, her mother's pendant clutched in her trembling hand like a talisman against evil. And that is when her phone rang, an unknown number at midnight. Hello? Amara answered hesitantly, fear making her voice small. Amara? The voice was female, cultured, educated, completely unfamiliar. My name is Ngozi Okoli. I believe we need to talk urgently about Obinna Okonkwo and the woman who is about to destroy him. The ex-girlfriend, calling at midnight, knowing Amara's name and number. How did you get my number? How do you know who I am? I have been watching carefully for months, and what I have seen terrifies me. Can we meet? Tomorrow morning? It is urgent. There are things about Kioma you need to know. Things about Obinna you deserve to understand. And the voice softened with something like sympathy. Things about your mother that will explain why you are at the center of all of this. The line went dead, leaving Amara staring at the phone in confusion and growing hope. What did her dead mother have to do with any of this? Why would Obinna's ex-girlfriend help a housemaid she had never met? And what secrets were about to surface that would set everything ablaze? The answers were coming faster than Amara could prepare for. But first, there was someone else who had been watching from the shadows. Someone from Amara's past who was about to make everything infinitely worse and more complicated. Because the next morning, when Amara went to meet Ngozi at a quiet cafe in Victoria Island, she saw a face she had prayed desperately she would never see again. Standing across the street, staring directly at her with a smile that promised suffering and revenge, was her stepmother Adana. And she was not alone. The cafe where Amara was supposed to meet Ngozi was called Serenity, one of those places where intellectuals sipped overpriced coffee and discussed philosophy and politics. Amara felt completely out of place in her simple dress, clutching her phone like a lifeline in a storm. But before she could enter, before she could reach safety, she saw her. Adana. Her stepmother stood across the busy street wearing a cheap imitation of Lagos fashion. Too much jewelry, too bright colors, trying desperately to look like she belonged in the city. But her eyes were exactly the same. Sharp, calculating, cruel as a snake. And beside her were Neka and Obiagali, her stepsisters, looking around Victoria Island like wolves who had found an unguarded sheep farm. Amara's first instinct, trained by years of survival, was to run. But then Adana's eyes locked on hers across the traffic, and a smile spread across her face like poison spilling from a cracked vessel. "Amara!" Adana's voice carried across the street, loud enough to turn heads and create a scene. "My daughter, my precious stepdaughter, we have been searching everywhere for you." People stopped walking. They watched, and Amara felt the trap closing around her like iron jaws. Adana rushed forward with her daughters, creating maximum drama and spectacle. "Oh, my poor child, you disappeared without a word. We have been so worried. Your father is sick with grief, crying every day for you." Lies. All lies spoken loud enough to create witnesses who would remember. How did you find me?" Amara's voice barely worked, her throat tight with fear. A mother always finds her child, no matter how far she runs. Adana grabbed Amara's arm, her fingers digging in like claws designed to draw blood. "We need to talk. Important family business. Surely your employer can spare you for an hour to speak with your worried family." Before Amara could respond, before she could scream or run or do anything, a voice cut through the chaos like a sword. "Actually, I am her employer for the moment. And you are?" Ngozi Okoli appeared like an avenging angel, tall, elegant, wearing confidence and power like a second skin. She was everything Kioma tried to be but was not. Genuinely sophisticated, naturally intelligent, with eyes that missed absolutely nothing. Adana's grip loosened slightly, uncertainty flickering across her face. Her stepmother, and these are her sisters. We have come all the way from the village to exploit her, I imagine." Ngozi's smile was polite, but her voice carried steel that could cut. "Amara, is this the woman you ran from? The one who tried to sell you to Chief Okafor?" Amara's eyes widened in shock. How did Ngozi know these details? Adana's face darkened with rage at being exposed. "This girl has been filling your head with lies, vicious lies. I am her mother. I have legal rights." "You have nothing." Ngozi stepped between them protectively. "Amara is 19, an adult. And if you do not leave peacefully right now, I will call the police and have you arrested for harassment and attempted extortion." For a moment, Adana looked ready to strike, her hand raised. But then she saw something in Ngozi's eyes, real power, dangerous connections, the kind of authority that could destroy a village woman in Lagos with a single phone call. "This is not over," Adana hissed directly to Amara, her voice low and venomous. "You think you can run to the city and become something you are not? You are nothing, you hear me? Nothing, just a cursed village girl, and I will make sure everyone knows it." She stormed off with Neka and Obiageli, but not before Obiageli whispered as she passed, "Mama has a plan, a good plan. You will see." When they were gone, Amara's legs nearly gave out beneath her. Ngozi caught her arm gently, steadying her. "Come, let us talk inside where it is safe. You need to hear everything." Inside the cafe, in a private corner away from curious ears, Ngozi ordered tea neither of them would drink, and then spoke words that rewrote Amara's entire understanding of her life and identity. "Your mother, Chidinma, saved a woman's life 23 years ago." Ngozi began carefully, watching Amara's face. "That woman was Obiageli Okonkwo, Obina's mother." Amara's breath stopped completely, the world tilting on its axis. Obiageli was traveling through Umufia when she went into premature labor. Dangerous premature labor. She was bleeding badly, dying. The hospital was hours away. Your mother, the midwife, saved both Obiageli and the baby, Obina. Tears filled Amara's eyes, spilling down her cheeks as the truth unfolded. I did not know. I never knew. How could you? You were just a child when your mother died. But Obiageli never forgot what Chidinma did. She sent money every year, anonymously, to help your mother and honor the debt. When she died 5 years ago from cancer, she made Obina promise to find Chidinma's daughter and help her if she ever needed anything. But Obina does not know who I am. He does not know the connection. He knows you are Amara, a girl from Umufia. But his mother's records were vague, incomplete. She only knew your mother's name and village. When you appeared at his door, a maid from Umufia named Amara, it was coincidence, or destiny, or both. Ngozi pulled out a photograph, old and faded but clear. In it, a younger Chidinma held a newborn baby, standing next to a beautiful woman in expensive clothes, Obiageli Okonkwo. Both women were smiling with genuine warmth. "This pendant you wear," Ngozi pointed to the bronze bird around Amara's neck. "Obiageli gave it to your mother. It was meant to be proof, a way for Chidinma's child to claim help from the Okonkwo family if ever needed." Amara touched the pendant with shaking fingers, understanding flooding through her. "My mother never told me any of this. She probably did not want you to rely on others or feel entitled to anything. She wanted you to stand on your own strength. But now," Ngozi's expression hardened with determination, "now you need this proof. Because Kioma is not just a gold digger. She is something far worse. I heard her on the phone. She is planning to steal everything from Obina to... I know. I have been investigating her for months, building a case." Ngozi leaned forward intently. "She has done this before. Targeted wealthy men, gained their complete trust, married them, then destroyed them legally and financially. 3 men in the last 7 years. One committed suicide when he lost everything. Another lost his fortune and his mind, disappeared completely. The third is in a psychiatric facility, broken. Horror washed over Amara like ice water. Does Obina know? Have you told him?" "I tried to tell him everything. But Kioma got to him first, poisoned the well. She convinced him I was jealous, that I was trying to sabotage his happiness because I had rejected his marriage proposal years ago." Ngozi's eyes grew sad with regret. "He thinks inviting me to the engagement party will prove he has moved on. He does not realize he is walking directly into a carefully constructed trap. Then we have to stop this. We have to. We will. But there is more you need to know." Ngozi's voice dropped lower, Your stepmother did not find you by accident. Kioma hired her, brought her to Lagos. The words hit like a physical blow to the stomach. What? Why would Kioma? Kioma does research on everyone in Obina's household. When she discovered you were from Umufia, she dug deeper into your background. She found your stepmother, made a deal with her. They are working together now, co-conspirators. But why? What could Adana possibly offer that Kioma needs? Money, obviously. Kioma promised her a substantial cut if she helps discredit you completely. You see, Kioma noticed something that Obina himself has not fully realized yet. Ngozi's eyes held deep sympathy. He is falling in love with you, Amara. Amara shook her head violently, refusing to believe it. No, that is impossible. I am just a maid. He is a billionaire. He barely knows I exist. We live in completely different worlds. A man whose mother taught him that character matters infinitely more than class or wealth. A man who sees in you the same goodness that once saved his life. Twice. Once when your mother delivered him into this world, and again when you saved him from that allergic reaction. Ngozi reached across the table, taking Amara's hand. Kioma sees it clearly. She watches how he looks at you when he thinks no one is paying attention. She is terrified of it, terrified of losing everything she has planned, so she is planning to destroy you before you can threaten her carefully constructed plans. The engagement party, Amara whispered, understanding dawning, will be a public execution. Kioma is planning something that will humiliate you so completely, so devastatingly, that you will have to leave Lagos entirely. And your stepmother will provide the ammunition, the false evidence. Ngozi's voice was grave. What do we do? How do we stop this? Amara felt desperate, cornered. We set a trap of our own, but it requires you to trust me completely, and to be brave enough to walk into hell knowing you might burn, knowing it will hurt before it gets better. I have survived hell before, Amara said quietly, thinking of years under Adana's cruelty. At least this time, I will not be alone. No, Ngozi agreed with a small smile. This time, you have allies. And the truth. Now listen carefully to the plan. The week before, the engagement party crawled by like a wounded animal, each day an agony of waiting and preparation. Amara returned to the mansion, her leave mysteriously cut short at Ngozi's request. She had called in a favor with Obina, claimed she needed to speak to Amara about catering options for a university event she was planning. Chioma's eyes burned with suspicion when Amara reappeared at the mansion. I thought you were gone for good. Mr. Obina asked me to return, Ma, to help with the engagement preparations. Extra hands needed. It was a lie, but a necessary one. Ngozi had orchestrated it perfectly, giving Amara a legitimate reason to be present at the party while keeping Kioma slightly off balance. Over the next days, Amara watched Kioma's schemes unfold like a play. She saw her stepmother visit the mansion twice, each time leaving with thick envelopes, payment, clearly, for services rendered. She noticed Kioma spending hours on the phone, her voice low and urgent, planning something. She observed the way Kioma would, accidentally, leave jewelry on Amara's cleaning cart, then make a theatrical show of finding it there later, planting seeds of suspicion with other staff members. But Ngozi was watching too, documenting everything, and recording conversations that would prove conspiracy. She is building a case against you, Ngozi explained during one of their secret meetings in parking garages and quiet corners. She will claim you have been stealing all along, systematically. Your stepmother will provide evidence, probably forged documents or planted items. At the party, in front of Lagos's elite and Obina's business partners, She will expose you publicly. Obinna will be forced to choose between believing his fiancé or defending a maid accused of theft. Social pressure will be enormous. He will choose her, Amara said quietly, accepting the painful truth. Perhaps. Or perhaps we give him reason to question everything he thinks he knows. Ngozi pulled out a thick folder. I have been building our own case carefully. Bank records showing Kioma's previous frauds, testimony from the families she destroyed, phone records of her calls to your stepmother, and she pulled out a small recording device. Recordings of conversations that will prove conspiracy and intent. Is that legal? Can we use it? In Nigeria? Complicated legally, but explosive enough that legality will not matter when it all comes out in public. Ngozi's expression turned serious, concerned. But Amara, this will hurt terribly. Before the truth emerges, you will have to endure public humiliation, accusations, judgment. Can you do that? Can you stand there and let them destroy you temporarily? Amara thought of her mother's strength, of the years under Adana's cruelty, of every time she had been called nothing, cursed, worthless, and had survived anyway. I have endured worse. I can endure this. Then we are ready for battle. The night of the engagement party arrived like a storm that had been building for months. The Okonkwo mansion blazed with lights visible from streets away. The guest list read like Nigeria's who's who: business magnates, politicians, entertainment stars, socialites, influencers. 300 people gathered to celebrate the union of Lagos's most eligible bachelor and the city's sweetheart. Amara wore her simple maid's uniform, as instructed by Mama Nkechi. She was supposed to be invisible, helping serve drinks and clear plates, but Ngozi had other plans waiting. When the time comes, Ngozi had told her firmly, you need to be center stage. Trust me completely. Kioma looked absolutely radiant in a gold dress that cost more than Amara would make in 10 years of hard work. She floated through the crowd, accepting congratulations, her hand displaying a diamond engagement ring that could feed a village for a year. Obinna stood beside her, devastatingly handsome in his tailored suit, but his eyes held something Amara recognized: doubt, sadness, emptiness. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. When Kioma laughed, he did not join in naturally, and in the corner, nursing a glass of wine, stood Ngozi, watching everything, waiting for the right moment. The first hour passed in a blur of champagne toasts and small talk. Amara moved through the crowd like a ghost, refilling glasses, removing empty plates, staying invisible. Several times, she felt Obinna's eyes on her, searching, but she did not look up, did not meet his gaze. Then Adana arrived, and the trap was sprung. She swept in wearing a dress 2 sizes too small and makeup applied with a heavy hand, with Neka and Obayagali flanking her like loyal soldiers. Somehow, she had gotten on the exclusive guest list. Kioma's doing, certainly, part of the plan. My, Adana announced loudly to anyone who would listen, her voice carrying across the elegant room. My stepdaughter working here as a servant? How appropriate. She always was meant for service, for being beneath others. People turned, curious, murmured, stared. Amara felt the crushing weight of 300 judgmental gazes. Stepmother, she said quietly, trying to maintain dignity. Please do not do this. Not here. Do not do what? Tell the truth? That you ran away from home like a criminal? Stole from your own family? Adana's voice carried across the room like a whip cracking. That you are here under false pretenses, lying about who and what you are. Kioma appeared instantly, her face arranged in perfect concern, every expression calculated. "Is everything all right?" Mrs. Okafor, Adana Okafor, this girl's stepmother. Adana gripped Kioma's hand like a lifeline, playing her part. "I'm so sorry to cause a scene at your beautiful celebration, but I must speak to your fiancé immediately. It is about this girl. There are things he needs to know urgently." "Of course," Kioma cooed, but her eyes glittered with triumph and malice. "Darling," she called to Obina across the room, "we have a situation that requires your attention." The crowd parted like the Red Sea as Obina approached, expensive shoes clicking on marble. His eyes found Amara's, and in them she saw confusion, concern, and something else, a question he had not yet learned to ask. "Mr. Okonkwo," Adana began, her voice dripping false sorrow and maternal concern, "I hate to do this at your joyful celebration, but as a mother, I have a duty to truth. This girl, my stepdaughter, has a long history of theft. In our village, she stole her own mother's jewelry, precious family heirlooms. When we tried to stop her, to correct her, she ran away into the night." Gasps rippled through the crowd like waves. Whispers multiplied. "That is a lie, a complete lie." Amara's voice broke with emotion. "Is it?" Adana turned to her daughters with theatrical precision. "Tell them what you witnessed. Tell them the truth." Nika stepped forward, her eyes dead and rehearsed. "It is true. We saw her take our mother's gold necklace and our grandmother's precious earrings. She claimed they belonged to her dead mother, but her mother died with nothing, penniless. Nothing but debts," Obiageli added on cue. "Our father married our mother to save Amara from poverty and starvation, and this is how she repays our family's kindness, with theft and lies and betrayal. The story was perfect, carefully rehearsed, coordinated, and utterly, completely false. But the crowd believed it instantly. Amara could see it in their faces, the rich looking at the poor maid, finding it easy, comfortable to believe the absolute worst." Kioma placed a gentle, supportive hand on Obina's arm. "Darling, I hate to say it, but I have suspected for weeks now. Little things going missing from my room. I did not want to accuse without solid proof. But now..." She pulled out her phone with perfect timing and played that damning video again, the one of someone who looked exactly like Amara stealing jewelry with deliberate movements. "I had security cameras installed secretly in the guest rooms," Kioma explained to the riveted crowd, "after items started disappearing mysteriously, and look what I discovered." The video played on a large screen someone had helpfully set up. In it, a figure in a maid's uniform, Amara's exact uniform, clearly took jewelry from a dresser and slipped it into her apron with practiced ease. The crowd erupted like a volcano. "Thief! Village criminal! How did she even get hired?" Amara stood frozen, watching her character assassinated in real time, her reputation destroyed. The figure in the video moved somewhat like her, wore her uniform, but something was subtly wrong. The face was obscured, but the body language was slightly off, not quite right. "This is fake," Amara said, but her voice was lost completely in the noise and judgment. Adana pressed her advantage ruthlessly. "And there is more evidence. The pendant she wears, that bronze bird, that was stolen too, from a woman my late husband once worked for, the Okonkwo family." That made Obina's head snap up sharply. "What did you say?" "It is true. I have proof." Adana pulled out a photograph, clearly doctored, but convincing at first glance to those who wanted to believe. "See? This pendant was taken from Mrs. Obiageli Okonkwo 20 years ago, and now this thief wears it proudly, probably thinking no one would recognize it. The pendant, the proof of Amara's sacred connection to the Okonkwo family. was being twisted into evidence of theft. Kioma's plan was brilliant, devastating, absolutely perfect. "Obina," Kioma said softly, with performed sympathy. "I know she saved your life once, but perhaps that was calculated too. Perhaps she staged the whole thing, knowing you would be grateful, knowing she could manipulate you." "No," Amara whispered through tears streaming down her face. "No, I would never." "Enough!" Obina's voice cracked like thunder, silencing the room instantly. He looked at Amara, and in his eyes she saw it again. Doubt. The same doubt from the beginning. Despite everything, despite the connection she had felt, he doubted her. "Amara." His voice was strained, breaking. "Is any of this true? Any of it?" "Sir, But before she could speak, before she could defend herself, another voice cut through the room with authority. "Yes, Obina. Let us hear what is actually true." Ngozi stepped forward, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically. She moved with the authority of someone who owned not just the room, but the truth itself and the power to wield it. "Ms. Okoli," Kioma's smile tightened visibly, "this does not concern you. Does it not? When my ex-boyfriend is about to make the biggest mistake of his life? When a young woman is being destroyed by calculated lies?" Ngozi turned to address the crowd directly. "I have been quiet for months, watching this play out, but I cannot stay silent anymore." She pulled out a remote control and clicked it. The screen that had shown the fake video now displayed something else. Bank statements, financial records. "Kioma Adeyemi has defrauded 3 men in the last 7 years. Each time, the pattern is identical. Seduce a wealthy man, get engaged, discredit anyone close to him who might interfere. Then, after marriage, systematically drain his accounts using prenuptial loopholes and corporate manipulation." Murmurs of shock spread. "That is slander, lies." Kioma's voice rose shrilly. "Obina, she is lying. She is jealous and bitter." "Am I?" Ngozi clicked again calmly. Phone records appeared, damning and detailed. "These are calls between you and Mrs. Adana Okafor. They started exactly 3 months ago, right after you discovered Amara worked here. You hired her specifically to destroy Amara's reputation." Adana's face went white as death. Click. Another image appeared, the real source and story of the pendant. This pendant was given to Chidinma Okafor by Obiageli Okonkwo 23 years ago, as thanks for saving her life and the life of her newborn son during a difficult birth in Umufia village. Obina staggered back as if physically struck. "That newborn was you, Obina. Amara's mother saved your life before Amara was even born. This pendant is not theft. It is proof of a promise between 2 mothers that their children would help each other if needed." Click. The video appeared again, but enhanced, analyzed. "This is not Amara in the video. Look closely at the left hand. Amara is right-handed. This person is left-handed. Look at the height markers on the door frame. This person is 3 inches taller than Amara. It is someone wearing a wig and a stolen uniform." Ngozi turned to face Kioma directly. "Someone like your assistant, Blessing, who is left-handed, 3 inches taller than Amara, and who received a 50,000 naira payment from you the exact day after this video was supposedly recorded." The crowd was silent now, absolutely transfixed. "And as for theft," Ngozi pulled out her final weapon, a stack of legal documents. "I have testimony from 3 families Kioma destroyed. I have evidence of false accusations she has made before, a pattern. I have recordings of her planning to drain Obina's accounts. And I have proof that this entire engagement is fraud designed to legally steal his fortune." Kioma's carefully constructed mask cracked completely, her beautiful face contorted with pure rage. "You bitch! You cannot—" "I already have." Ngozi turned to Obinna with finality. "The question is, will you believe the truth? Or will you let pride and doubt destroy the one genuinely good person in your life?" All eyes turned to Obinna. He stood motionless, his brilliant mind clearly racing, processing the avalanche of revelations. His eyes moved from Ngozi to Chioma, to Adana, to Amara, stopping on her tear-stained face. Amara, who stood trembling, the pendant glinting at her throat, the pendant his mother had given to the woman who had saved his life. "Is it true?" His voice was barely a whisper, raw with emotion. "Your mother saved my life." Amara nodded, unable to speak through her tears. "And you have been here all along. My mother's dying wish was to help you, to find you, and you were here, and I did not know." "I did not know either, sir," Amara managed, her voice breaking. I just needed work. I was running from hell, and I ended up here, and I thought it was just chance." "There is no such thing as chance," Ngozi said softly, with certainty. "Only destiny we are too blind to see until it is revealed." Obinna turned to Kioma slowly. The woman who had claimed to love him stood exposed, her beautiful face now ugly with hatred and defeated rage. "You were going to destroy me. Destroy everything." "You are a fool!" Kioma spat, all pretense shattered. "A rich, stupid fool. You do not deserve your wealth. You do not deserve any of this. I worked for it. I planned perfectly. And I would have succeeded if this village rat had not—" "Guards," Obinna said quietly, with absolute authority. "Remove her from my house. And call the police immediately." Security moved forward efficiently. Kioma struggled violently, screaming obscenities, her carefully constructed image shattered completely for all to see. Then Obinna turned to Adana with cold fury. "You sold your own stepdaughter, tried to marry her to an old man, came here to destroy her for money you had not earned." Adana tried desperately to smile, to salvage something from the wreckage. "Mr. Okonkwo, please, I can explain everything. Guards, remove her too, and her daughters. I never want to see them again, ever." As they were dragged away, Adana screaming threats, Kioma demanding lawyers, Neka and Obiagali crying, the crowd stood in stunned, complete silence. 300 of Lagos's elite had just witnessed the scandal of the decade unfold. But Obinna was not done, not nearly done. He turned to address the crowd, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room with power. "Tonight was supposed to be my engagement party, a celebration of a future built on what I thought was love." He paused, gathering himself. "Instead, it has become something else entirely. A revelation, a reckoning, and perhaps a different kind of beginning altogether." He walked toward Amara with purpose. The crowd parted instinctively, reverently. She stood frozen, hardly breathing, as he stopped directly before her. "My mother's last words to me were, 'Find Chidinma's daughter, help her. She carries grace in her name and goodness in her heart. She is the debt we can never fully repay.'" His voice broke with emotion. "I looked for you. For years I searched everywhere, and all along you were here, invisible, right in front of me, and I was too blind to see. Sir, Not sir. Please, not anymore." He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. "Amara, your name means grace, and you have shown me grace I did not deserve. You saved my life twice, once through your mother's skilled hands, once through your own courage. You have endured cruelty, humiliation, and betrayal, and still, you remained good, kind. true to yourself. Tears flowed freely down both their faces now, witnessed by hundreds. I have been a fool, Obinna continued, his voice strengthening. I almost married a woman who saw me as a bank account, nothing more. I almost lost the one person who saw me as simply human. Flawed and human. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the engagement ring, the massive diamond meant for Kioma, symbol of a lie. The crowd gasped collectively. This ring was bought for the wrong woman, for all the wrong reasons. He held it up, then deliberately dropped it on the marble floor. The ping of expensive metal hitting stone echoed through the silence. Then he reached into his other pocket and pulled out something else. A simple golden band with a small emerald, modest and infinitely more beautiful. This was my mother's. She wore it every single day of her married life. She said it was worth more than any diamond because it represented true love, earned and cherished over time. He lowered himself to one knee before her, before everyone. 300 people collectively held their breath, witnessing something unprecedented. Amara Chidinma Okafor, daughter of the woman who gave me life, bearer of grace, keeper of truth. I am not asking you to marry me tonight. You deserve time, proper courtship, and the complete freedom to choose without any pressure. He held up the ring, his hand steady despite his emotion. But I am asking for permission to try, to earn your heart the way a woman like you truly deserves, to build something real between us, not rushed, not forced by circumstance, but true and lasting. Will you give me that chance? Will you let me prove myself worthy? Amara's sobs shook her entire body. I am just a maid, she whispered, old wounds speaking. I have nothing. I am nothing compared to your world. You are everything, Obinna interrupted firmly. You are grace personified. You are the answer to my mother's dying prayer. You are the reason I believe in goodness again, in love that is real. He smiled through his own tears. And if you will let me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you are not nothing, that you never were nothing, that you have been everything all along, and I was just too blind to see it. The room was silent except for Amara's ragged breathing and the sound of hearts breaking and mending. She looked at this man, this billionaire who knelt before her, who had just destroyed his own engagement party, who had chosen truth over pride and love over status. She thought of her mother's eternal words, "A good heart is worth more than all the gold in Lagos." She thought of the journey that had brought her here, the pain, the running, the fear, the survival. And she thought of the pendant around her neck, a promise between mothers, fulfilled in ways neither could have imagined. Yes, she whispered to him, to the room, to destiny itself. Then louder, stronger. Yes, yes, I will give you that chance. Obinna slipped the ring onto her finger, not as an engagement, but as a promise of possibility. He stood, and gently, reverently, as if she were made of something precious and breakable, he pulled her into an embrace. And the crowd, cynical, sophisticated, wealthy Lagos elite who had seen everything, erupted in thunderous applause, because they had just witnessed something rare in their world of calculated marriages and strategic alliances, something they had forgotten existed. They had witnessed love, real, messy, impossible, beautiful, transformative love, the kind that changes everything,